Ugh. All right. Yeah. God damn it. All right. Hey, can you do me a favor?
What?
And shut the door
Okay.
while you guys hang out? Thanks. Thanks. All right. We got another trash. I can hear your bile rising in your throat from here. That's a weird way to put that. So, we dug deep into the vaults. We dug deep all the way back into May of 2020, which I'm pretty sure was 30 years ago. That's so stupid, Lord. That Roger Stone thing's stupid. So, we dug deep into the mines, the cringe mines. John Doyle did some cringe back in May of 2020. John Doyle tried his hand at doing a skit. This is John Doyle's skit titled Fake News Network Reacts to Pearl Harbor 1941 Colorized. So, much like a fine wine, we're gonna sip from this cringe nectar. Tannins. And we're gonna swish it around. We're gonna sniff it. We're gonna take some samples. This is wine night. We're doing some high class cringe here with John Doyle trying to do a skit for comedy, and he thinks these are funny haha jokes. All right, here we go.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us as we have breaking news coming out of Hawaii, as the headquarters of the United States Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor has been severely damaged in what looks to be a catastrophic display of negligence by the Roosevelt administration. Joining us now is senior political analyst Jack Doyle here at FNN to break down the situation. Jack, thank you for being here. Can you tell us what's going on? The president keeps calling it a Japanese attack. Do you think that this is sending the wrong message? Thanks for having me, John. And yeah, I'd be glad to do that. I think that...
So, Is this Donald Trump should call it the Chinese flu? Right there? Is that what that was right there? The president has called this a Japanese attack. Is that too strong? One of them was a bombing run, and the other John is a virus that was an appointed attack at the United States. But if it was, it would be very smart and a good attack on the United States, because they did it while Donald Trump was in office, so that everything would go wrong. Oh.
You may have misspoke when describing the event, and no, I don't think that the president is sending the wrong message at all, because what's happened is a Japanese attack on the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor. I'm sorry, and I have to interrupt for a second. Let's try not to point fingers as to who's responsible for this before we have all of the facts. What? Well, you just claimed that it was a Japanese attack. Right, that's completely factual. Well, we try to avoid using alternative facts here at FNN, and my producers are actually telling me that this attack just came from Japan, but that doesn't mean that we can just declare it as a Japanese attack.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about John Doyle, but he is obviously incapable of understanding what the word intent means. How doesn't he understand how intent works? Hey, I'm bombing you with airplanes on purpose. Okay? That's one thing. Hey, a person got sick, and then another person got sick, and eventually that trend continued to the point where someone in America got sick. I don't understand. I don't understand. Why is he so stupid? Why is he so stupid?
It's actually exactly what that means. Well, you know, we just want to try to avoid scapegoating anyone in particular right now as the story is unfolding and we're still sorting out the details. But can you comment on the blood that President Roosevelt has on his hands since he failed to protect us from this incident? I don't think that the president has failed at all. I think that his response to this has been swift and it's been effective. I mean, the president has lifted the American morale. He's called for a suspension of naturalization proceedings for Japanese immigrants. So, Jack, why do we think it's okay to suspend Japanese immigration as a result of this incident? Do you have a problem with people that come from other countries? Of course not. But the idea would basically be...
Is he implying that a modern left-leaning person would agree that that is a reasonable response? Like, seriously? Like, yeah, FDR, do we think that a modern leftist person would be like, yeah, FDR did the right thing there? Do you think that anyone on the left agrees with the Japanese racism in America that happened due to this? Like, what? Oh, God damn it, Logarth. The right is getting worse at comedy, and it's making the left exhausted, definitely.
Be that this crisis poses a risk to our national security, and since we have to protect the American people, we should suspend all immigration from the place in the world that caused this crisis. Again, which is, the Japanese didn't cause this crisis. There's a difference between causing something and acting in ways that directly result in something. Literally, there is not. Jack, you see?
Yes, there literally is. What? 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 He almost understood intent in his own. What? Okay. The strain of COVID-19 that came to America came from Europe. Well, you know.
Seem to be very focused on what the Japanese people have done. But do you care to comment on the actions of the Roosevelt administration that led to this? Do you care to comment on the embargoes, for example? Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, the Japs have been looking to strengthen... Easy. What's the problem? Let's try to avoid using racial slurs on national television, okay? How is that a racial slur? There is no such thing as the Japanese race. Well, it's still offensive.
This guy, he's so stupid, dude. He's so fucking dumb. How does he... He's posting cringe. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you other than he is posting cringe, and he thinks that this is okay.
Offensive. Maybe so, but it's also efficient. And thousands of American lives were just lost, but you want to waste time with me in a semantics battle over what words I'm using or how I'm labeling this crisis? Where are your priorities at?
Well, I mean, the priorities during the crisis, because he's trying to and failing to do like oh, look at COVID did the so the response, you're like, we should be dealing with a response. Well, first of all, you're not the president in this skit, and neither is, or a member of the administration whatsoever. You're just a fucking person. You're like a reporter or some shit. Second of all, never in the history of the world has tightening the screws on an already tense racial issue, has that ever worked out in a positive way for anybody involved. That has always led to suffering and pain and sadness and atrocity every single time that you try to do it. It's bad and it's not effective. The next thing is, in no way is you being insensitive to large swaths of American citizens who are just as patriotic, probably more so, than you, John Doyle, that identify with the sort of demographic that you are denigrating for your political points, just to sort of feel, I don't know, like it's cathartic or something, to be like, the fucking Chinese flu. I don't know why you want to, I don't know what's the point? When people go, like, the way you communicate that harms other people and isn't productive, you go, no, yeah, it is. Why are we wasting time on this? Like, you're the one wasting time, John. You're the one wasting time. When you don't have to communicate it that way, you can communicate it in an objective way instead of trying to anthropomorphize the situation. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not useful. You are the one making this go sluggishly.
The embargo exists in response to aggression from Imperial Japan throughout Southeast Asia, particularly within the French colonies of Indochina. And so that's a mighty word salad there, my friend. A word, what is
the French colony? He sees no problem with the idea that it was French colonialization that was being responded to, of course. Okay. LOL, Doyle acting like he wouldn't be cheering for the Japanese, Germans, and Italians if he was alive in 1941. Oh, he'd be a fascist.
What does that even mean? Well, you seem like you're trying to avoid addressing the uncomfortable truth, which is that President Roosevelt designed these embargoes to target the Japanese people. Did that need to be said? Like I just explained to you the actions that were taken by the Japanese, which are the reasons for the embargoes. Jack, and you're trying to make it missing the point. No, you're twisting my words. Jack, I'm not doing that. Yes or no? President Roosevelt designed the embargoes to target the Japanese people. How is that? Like, are you asking me if Japanese people live in Japan? What kind of... Yes or no? Sure. So we agree. I don't think so. So then you hate the Japanese people? I'm not saying that there's...
This is such a fucking straw man, dude. Oh my God.
There's anything wrong with the Japanese people. I think that they're great people, but their government is terrible. Imperial Japan has overseen some of the greatest human rights violations in the history of the world, frankly. Actually, they've done a great job. In fact, they've helped us to hold our own leadership accountable, our own leadership that placed unnecessary embargoes on them through an act of racism and xenophobia. And I think that the rhetoric that we've heard from the president and from yourself is harmful, and I think that it has the potential to cause a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment in the country because... Our rhetoric will.
The aggressive nature of the reporter is more connected to conservative reporters. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's so weird how you can tell that John Doyle is rock hard for Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yes, not the attack, just our rhetoric. Right? Jack, again, you're missing the point. People need to stop blaming others. They should just stay calm and just stay inside until all of this blows over. What do you mean we shouldn't blame others for this? Like, shouldn't someone be held accountable for this? Shouldn't the country responsible be held accountable? And what do you mean people should just stay inside?
Okay. So, we are upset at a country, China, for doing the COVID, okay, and it's spreading to other places. And so why are we mad? If I sit John down and I ask him, why are you mad at China for COVID? And he's going to say, well, people got sick and they died, right? Okay. So you agree that people getting sick and dying from COVID is a bad thing? Yes. Why are you not mad at the American president and the administration for causing more deaths than needed to be done? How do you not follow through? I don't understand how that thought process doesn't continue, right? Because the way I'm upset at China is I am upset by anyone in China that didn't take it seriously enough, if they weren't ignorant of it, to not quarantine the situation and make sure that their citizens and whoever comes in contact with these people would be safe, right? Because that's all you can do at that point. You can't. I mean, it's a fucking bioengineered situation here, even though John Doyle would like to think so. It's just a fucking statistical inevitability that at some point you're going to get a very communicable disease and it's going to spread around the world due to the fact that we have mass travel and all that stuff like that. So at what point does Donald Trump and the Republican administration, who were in control of the country during COVID, at what point did they take ownership of their portion of American deaths and deaths that were caused by just in general, just not shutting down when they should have? Like, at what point do they take any of it? It's just very strange. Him having his racist guy be named Jack is legit bugging the shit out of me. How dare he sully my name like that? It's so fucking cringe. Like, I don't know how you don't extend this to yourself.
Don't you know that they have jobs to do? How are they supposed to provide for their families? See, this is what I'm talking about. Everyone is saying, oh, well, I want this. Oh, and I want that. No one is talking about what the country wants. And by the country, of course, I mean Japan. And that's selfish thinking. Japan wants to kill everyone, John. Well, then that's their prerogative. And you should be more open-minded. How are you employed? Jack, it's clear to me that you and I are not exactly on the same page here. So why don't we bring in our next guest to help clear things up a little bit. Imperial Japanese Officer-in-Chief Tokyo City Correspondent Fukuyo Amalika. Thank you for joining us. Are you kidding me? Thank you for having me, John. I'm very excited to be here. Well, believe me, the pleasure is all ours, officer. Now, I do have to apologize for some of the rhetoric that you had to endure earlier from Mr. Doyle.
At least he's not doing a fucking voice, dude. That's the last thing we need. That is the last thing we needed. Come on, crackers. Get out of here. Not you. Not you people. You're not all crackers. These crackers are, though.
Which I'm sure that you found to be extremely offensive. Oh, no, not really. So, can you clear up what happened for us today? Can you tell us a little bit about how it wasn't your fault and so you shouldn't have to take responsibility for it? Well, simply put, we are the superior people on this earth, which means that it's our job to rule over the rest of mankind, and so we're looking to continue our conquest throughout Asia. The United States decided to enact an oil embargo, and we've since re-strategized to get our oil from the East Indies. The problem being that while the Dutch and British aren't explicitly allied with the Americans, they're fairly amicable with each other. And since America occupies territories that are beside our supply lines, such as the Philippines and Guam... Yeah, that's classic America, right? Always taking land from native populations.
Is John under the impression that any leftist historian, went to school for it, is on the side of Japan in that? And then also is on the side of China insofar as COVID is concerned? There's a big difference between calling it the Chinese virus, which... in America means that people will be prejudicial towards those they perceive to be Chinese, whether or not they are Chinese or not, because Americans are fucking stupid. Okay, and that's the argument. The argument is please don't use demographic imagery when describing the problem of COVID because it makes people like there are Chinese restaurants around the country that have been closed down, and for instance, like the Chinese communities have been actually very, very negatively impacted, not only due to the fact that, you know, it's a restaurant, but also the fact that people are like, ooh, Chinese restaurants, I'm going to get COVID. Like, how are you not understanding the argument? It's not about the policies of China. Not a lot of leftists like China. Some say, well, here's some things China does well. Here's some things they do poorly. But I don't know if there's a lot of leftists that are like, yeah, China's really good on human rights. Like, that's not a thing. If it is, they're probably a tanky, and they're not necessarily a leftist. Or they're just ignorant of the things that go on in China. And when you just stand here and do the Japanese thing, there aren't leftists that agree with Japan. There are just people that agree that Japan can be shitty. And there's also room for America to be shitty. Did you know that we can be both shitty at the same time? It's just super bizarre to me that John is incapable of understanding that if I say Japan is bad, it doesn't mean America good. And if I say America is bad, it doesn't mean Japan is good when I talk about the conflict that happened during World War II. It's fucking wild. By the way, yeah, I might order Chinese tomorrow now. That sounds really good.
Right. So given the geographic implications of the American... Everyone's illegal on stolen land, am I right? Do you mind if... Okay, thank you. So given the geographic implications of the American military bases and controlled territories, we really couldn't risk losing everything that we've been fighting for as a result of an American decision to enter the war. So we elected to cripple the ability of the Americans to mobilize against Imperial Japanese interests. So basically what you're saying is that America was unfairly targeting you. We were singling you out because you're different, because maybe you look a little bit different than we do, maybe because you invade a little bit different than we do. Is that what you're telling us?
Who's this arguing against? This is just fucking straw. Like, has he ever had this conversation with a left-leaning person in his life? Even close to this? Which is obviously about COVID in China and not about Japan in the war. I'm just saying, like, I don't think he's ever had this conversation. It's so weak. This is so weak.
I guess you could say that. I think that's sort of missing the point. I think really,
Can I chime in for a second? Why is it that we're so concerned about people's feelings right now? What happened was an act of war against the United States of America, and it should be met with a proportionate response. And that's
Okay,
exactly...
Jack, so let me get this straight. You're talking about going to war now because of Japan, but while Hitler's been acting in Europe for years, you've been preaching a policy of neutrality. So why is it that you're backtracking on that when it comes to Japan? Are you in support of what Hitler is doing?
What? No, Hitler is allied with Imperial Japan. Imperial Japan attacked us. Like, I don't even understand how that makes sense. You're literally promoting the agenda of our enemy. I don't know why you...
Mr. Doyle, Jack, I'd like to continue, please. So, Officer Malika, I understand that you were led to believe by intelligence that all 3 American aircraft carriers were going to be docked this morning, but upon your arrival, they were not there because they were out at sea. So, how does this misinformation from the United States affect your ability to operate effectively?
Oh my God.
That's correct, John, and it really was discouraging, but thankfully, we were
Are you seriously doing this right now?
Mr. Doyle, Fukuyo Malika didn't interrupt when you were speaking, so could you please extend him the same respect? It's true, I didn't.
What is the matter with you? You have the audacity to attack us while we're sleeping and then purport yourself to be this quintessential figure for common decency? And you, John, why on God's green earth would you allow him on the network when you know that he shouldn't be here? Are you serious?
Why is it that you don't think he should be here, Jack?
You know exactly what I mean. Earlier this morning, these people deliberately attacked...
What do you mean by these people, Jack?
This is exhaustingly straw. Dude, if you just like cows eat straw, right? Who eats straw? Is that a thing? I know they make bedding out of it. Could you just like horses? I don't think they eat straw. They eat the other stuff. Anyway, like hay. That's the thing I'm thinking of. Hay. They are bundled in similar ways in Michigan, so I always forget. But if you just show cows this video in the middle of winter, they'll never need straw bedding again. They'll have all they need forever. John thinks this was a good video. He put this out on the internet. God fucking...
Are you serious right now? Look at him. He's learning.
Mr. Lemon, I think he's doing that thing that you mentioned earlier again.
Oh my... Officer Malika, is he offending you right now?
Yes, that's it. He's offending me right now. Oh, no, help. I'm so offended. Help, America.
Jack, we're going to have to excuse you from this segment since you clearly cannot contain your prejudice.
Oh, God forbid.
John, I am so sorry for offending you. In the meantime, why don't you ask the officer here about the hundreds of thousands of people that were slaughtered in Nanking by his country? Why don't you ask him about their use of chemical weapons or about the human experimentation? You've awoken a sleeping giant, and I hope that... Oh,
looks like his feed cut out. Must have been a bad signal. Well, that's what happens when you have that much hatred in your heart. It blinds you from seeing the truth. So, Officer Malika, I apologize on behalf of my country for the discrimination that your people have faced and will continue to face from those in my country who are bigoted. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you again soon. Oh, I think I'll be seeing America again very soon. Well, that about wraps it up for us, so...
So it started off as this sort of like, see, COVID, here's the parallels. And then he just went into like this sort of like faux outrage about like offensive stuff. You will not find a leftist, if they have any education on the Japanese imperialist war machine of the early 20th century. I don't think you'll get anybody on their side. They were authoritarian, racist, xenophobic. I mean, it's not surprising they sided with Hitler. The rape of Nanking, which you briefly mentioned, was obviously very, very bad. They don't fit any leftist mold at all. They are Japanese. It is the difference is that you think calling them the Japs is reasonable when that is a racially charged thing. That when you start saying that, you start saying the Japs are all bad people. What we get is the awful racist treatment and the fucking internment camps of American citizens who happen to hail from that country, even though they're Americans. Like, and not just Japanese people, Korean and Chinese people, Vietnamese people, Laotian people, like fucking Filipino people that happen to look a little more Asian. Like, I mean, people from just Asia in general, South Asia, the island, like, all those people got fucking, like, mistreated, and terrible racism was like, totally socially acceptable. Like, absolutely not fucking cool. How do you not understand the difference between not denigrating an entire society or entire people based upon where they hail from rather than the institution of their government? That's the fundamental difference, John. It's fucking gross.
Thank you for tuning in to the most trusted source in news. And remember, the enemy of the people is not the press, and it's not the actual enemy of the people. The real enemy of the people is the person who tries to point out who is an enemy, because by doing that, that person is marginalizing others, which is offensive and intolerant. So,
again, you can talk shit about the Japanese government, but then when you start saying that Japanese people are bad, that's when we get into this rough area where you're just not being factually correct, and you're also inciting, like needlessly inciting race-based denigration of a people. It just doesn't make any sense.
We can't have any tolerance for that. So, good night, everyone, and remember, for 10,000 years.
For 10,000 years, holy shit. Yeah, this guy's a fucking dog shit person. I don't know what you're talking about with this centrist shit over here, guy who just showed up in my chat, but he's not centrist whatsoever. You're calling me centrist, boy, did you fucking miss the mark. Fake news network, boy. Yeah. Y'all ever just project war crimes onto someone else to cope with the fact that you love war crime? It's so weird, man. John Doyle is a huge fucking LARP. Unless that guy was calling me centrist, maybe it was. Yeah, I don't know. But John Doyle is absolute dog shit, and he does not deserve happiness.